but I wanted to welcome everybody to our CEC Monthly Exchange webinar. I am Jackie Spainhauer. I'm a field specialist in community development for MU Extension, and I serve 10 counties in Northwest Missouri. And as I have mentioned on our previous webinars, the Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities is one of my favorite programs that I have the privilege of working on, and I love that you have all chosen to be with us today. As a reminder, our webinar series at this time is just giving you a brief sneak peek at our speaker lineup at our CEC Conference that will take place in Fulton on September 17th through 19th. We would love to have you join us. One of the goals of the CEC Conference is to bring like-minded people together to share ideas, best practices, success stories, and things that are happening in our rural Missouri communities. And a part of that, of the conference I enjoy most, is getting to hear from our local people tell their stories. So today, I am very excited to introduce you to one of our keynote speakers at the conference, Beth Snyder. Beth will be kicking off the conference for us on Wednesday, September 18th, during our opening lunch. So what might you want to know about Beth? Her products from her current businesses can be found in about 3,500 retail stores around the world and on the web. And her 3PL fulfillment warehouse employs more than 20 people in Fulton and serves small gift company clients. When I started putting this together today, I was going to read all of Beth's bio, but I think it's best to hear straight from her. So Beth, thank you for joining us today. And I would like to start off by asking you to share a little bit more about yourself and your businesses.
Yeah, hi. Happy to be here. And I'm going to try really hard to save something for the conference, but I'm sure, 3 months from now that I will have plenty of other things to talk about. Hi, I'm Beth Snyder. I'm 43 years old. I live in Fulton, Missouri, which is right in the middle. We're about 30 miles, 30 minutes east of Columbia. And I grew up in this county. I grew up in Callaway County. My dad was a school superintendent at the very rural high school that I went to. And I went to Mizzou. I got a degree in graphic design and fibers because I wanted to design fabric, which turns out is exactly what I'm doing with my life through a roundabout way. But I graduated from Mizzou in 2002, and I realized pretty quickly, I was like, I can't get it creative. There's no creative jobs here. There's no graphic design jobs here or anything. And so the whole time I went to Mizzou, I worked at Channel 8, the NBC affiliate that's owned by the university, and I did graphic design and production there. So I left Mizzou with this degree in fine arts, but I had 4 years of really practical work experience, on the job experience, doing design, designing the vehicle wraps, I designed the logo that they still use today. I designed sets for their shows, for their news shows, and I ran graphics for the big Jumbotron at the football stadium, which to date is the most stressful job I've ever had. Because the athletic director is on the headset yelling at you if you don't hit the right code number to pull up the right person for the starting lineup. So that is very stressful, but it was fun. So when I graduated, I ended up moving to Nashville and working at the CBS affiliate news channel in Nashville. And I lived there for 6 years. And I pretty much, when I left college, was like, well, I'm not going to be able to live here where my family is. I'm not going to get a job. There's not enough creative stuff happening, whatever. And the internet was starting in 2002. It was around. Napster and even Amazon, I think, was around then. But e-commerce wasn't as much of a thing. So in the course of all the time I spent in Nashville, I always had some little business that I was starting, that I was painting people's rooms and doing craft shows with things I had made and whatever. But then Etsy came along. And e-commerce really, the door got kicked wide open on e-commerce. And then there were blogs. And so from your computer, you could really access the entire world as far as inspiration and also as far as getting exposure for yourself. So as the years went on, I started to just realize, I'm not going to make it here in Nashville. It's expensive. And my family's back home. I miss the beautiful wide open skies. I miss the agricultural community and the people here. And I had met somebody and he was fine with moving back. So I got a job working at Farm Journal magazine in Mexico, Missouri. So that was really to go from Nashville, where it was a super diverse workplace and super diverse city. Diverse in every way imaginable. And then coming back to work in Mexico, Missouri was a real culture shock. But I felt like that was possible because of the internet. And that's really part of what I love to talk about, is that it's great to go places, but at some point when you start looking at like, okay, maybe I would like to raise a family, maybe I want to have a different, work-life balance, living in a smaller rural community is so much more doable. Like the pressure to pay for this giant mortgage and to just keep on that cycle was a lot. And I just kind of opted out of it. And it's been really great. I worked a job for 3 whole years and pretty much started my first business while I was waiting for the editor to finish her article for me to send to the printer every 2 weeks. And I hope she watches this someday. She'll really laugh at me complaining about that. But I would work till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, a lot of nights, like 50 hours a week, a lot of nights. And I was just like, this is not my beautiful life. What I felt really disconnected from the purpose. So starting a business is something I had always wanted to do. I always wanted to be my own boss. And I had a good idea, and it actually took off. So I'm actually going to share my screen because I'm a visual person and I can tell better, with pictures. So this is my first company, One Canoe Two, and we started off doing letterpress. I had an antique letterpress that we bought in another tiny town in Missouri, and then we just grew into this like global stationery company. So we do things like we painted all this artwork and then we put it on calendars and planners and greeting cards. Greeting cards is really the bread and butter for what we do. And this business grew to have 13 employees. The last year that I owned it, we did $3 million in sales, and I sold it at the end of 2021 because I had an amazing opportunity to sell it. And also I felt like I had kind of seen it like as far as I could. And the things that came next were things like getting external financing to be able to finance giant POs from big box stores or doing sales even to those big box stores. And I was like, I really want to make beautiful products and figure out how to sell it, like kind of in this niche, like not too small, but not giant. So eventually I was able to quit my job, which I never would have been able to do if I had lived in Nashville, because it's so much more affordable to live here. And I really can't state how much that made a difference on my family's finances. The fact that we had a house that in 2009 we paid $120,000 for, and then the house that we still live in today we bought in 2014 and paid $165,000 for. That like the long-term effects of living within your means and how much freedom that affords you is it really just cannot be understated. And I try to tell all my city friends the same, like, hey, stop getting an $800,000 mortgage. And then you're stuck in the rat race then, you're just stuck with that. So I feel like one of my superpowers has been being able to like look down the line and be like, is that truly going to make me happy? Having whatever, I don't have a Mercedes or a G-Wagon, no problem with that if you'd like that, but that doesn't make me that happy. But having my $165,000 house that we put a pool in last year, that makes me very happy. That pool makes me happy every day. So, okay, so One Canoe Two I sold at the end of 2021, which I'm really proud of. And in 2019, I started Hanker Bandanas, which sounds crazy, but I design bandanas and sell them all over the place. And this business is going to do $2 million this year, I think. So I design these bandanas. They get made in India at a manufacturer where I've gone to visit several times. And then they come here to our warehouse and we ship them out. So, and then just last week or 2 weeks ago, I launched this new company with my sister. It's called Larnie and Babs, and it's nesting dolls that are, I just get such a kick out of it every time I see it, but it's nesting dolls that are pop culture. So this is the 70s men of pop. It's David Bowie and Stevie Wonder and Elton John, and etc. So that's just launching. So this is like a good picture of what I'd love to do. I'd love to have like a really good idea. I love to see a hole in the market and then to go out and, try to sell it. Like there's nothing that makes me happier than selling something to somebody. And it's not the money. It's just like, oh, I made a thing that they think is cool enough that they want to part with their hard-earned dollars for. And it brought them a little bit of joy. So then all of this creative work and all this businesses, like that's all really fun. But I have to ship all that product out somehow. So we have done all of our own fulfillment since it was in the basement of my house here in Fulton. My husband and I spent every evening just talking about our day over the tape gun. You know, you hear the rip of the tape gun and be like, how's your day? Oh, your boss is crazy. Okay, whatever. And so we did our own fulfillment for so long. And I started to think, how do other people do this? Because so much of our time is spent on that. And when I went to look at other bigger fulfillment centers, I just didn't like what they were doing. So there was a hole in the market between a company who's big enough to be in a huge 3PL, like a huge Amazon warehouse or something, and then doing it in your basement. Doing it in your basement or your garage or something doesn't really work for people who live in LA or Brooklyn. And I have a lot of friends in the industry, which I call it the gift industry. It's like what I make is things that people give as gifts, right? So they buy it online from me, or we sell it to a store. They walk in a store, they buy it. I have a lot of friends in this industry from going to trade shows all over the place. And during the pandemic, they're like, hey, my giant warehouse is not shipping anything because they have a COVID outbreak and because I'm their smallest customer and they don't care. In fact, I had one of my friends call me on a Thursday and say, I'm flying from Dallas to Philadelphia. I'm going to rent 2 U-Hauls, put all of my stuff in it for my warehouse, and I'll be there on Saturday. And that is what she did because her warehouse hadn't shipped out orders since October, and it was December 1st, and it was Christmas time. And so she did, and we shipped out 1,000 orders on Monday. So I own a warehouse and a 3PL, which was not really on my bingo card for businesses, but I have to ship my own stuff. We're pretty good at it. We have space and really great employees in a small town who are really grateful to have a job in town, with benefits and, you know, like a good, sane place to work. It's not as hectic as an Amazon warehouse or something. So yeah, I see the opportunity in running my business from a small town, and I see the advantages in a way that I don't think other people do, but I sure wish they did. So I'm on the Chamber of Commerce board here, and I have been for almost 10 years. And I just so firmly believe, like, you can do this in a small town. It's actually the best place to start a business. You have the whole internet, and there's airplanes, you can fly places. Like, keep your costs low, keep your overhead low. Don't have a fancy apartment or a fancy office in LA or Brooklyn or Miami or whatever. Like, let us do all that stuff. So that's basically my sales pitch when we're looking for new clients, is like, please let me do this. I know how to, we care about it. We'll do a good job. And also, of course, it's cheaper in Fulton, Missouri than it is where you are. We can take this hassle off your head and you can go about making new products and doing marketing and stuff. So today I have about 25 employees and across all the different businesses and keep pretty busy doing that. I spend about half my time on the product-based businesses doing marketing and design, and half my time doing operations. So I'm a very creative person, but man, my mom is a super hardcore German lady who's raised in a family of 9 kids on a farm. And so very like efficiency oriented. So in fact, yesterday we picked 200 ears of corn and processed like 50 quarts of corn. So that was like my childhood. It was so efficient. It was great.
So Beth, it is obvious that you have an entrepreneurial spirit. And so if you would go back to high school, I read in your bio that you started a business in high school. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I left that part out. Actually, my first business was in 4th grade. I made friendship bracelets, and then I bought all the product. I would take the orders. I would farm out the product, like the raw goods, to my friends. They would make it just like a co-op. And I would sell it and then give them, you know, part of the profit. This is in 4th grade. And I had this little trash can of money in my desk where I kept all the finances, you know, and sure enough, somebody tattled on me because they didn't understand the business plan. So we ended up in the principal's office. So that was short-lived, but I definitely have this, like, how could I make some money so that I can have some independence? I don't know. It's just like, it's fun to me. So when I was in high school, I had a business creating decorative, like, home decor, glass bottles and jewelry and stuff. And I sold it I went to craft shows. My mom took me to craft shows. She gave me a loan for $250 to buy the supplies. I never had to have a job outside of my little bedroom where I made all this stuff. And by the time I went to college, I had made and saved $40,000. So meanwhile, my favorite thing to say about that is that meanwhile, both of my sisters were a waitress at the truck stop in Kingdom City. And, you know, I had a much better life at that time. Now, one of them is a doctor and one of them is a lawyer now. So they're doing fine in their lives. But
Well, if you had to pinpoint, what would you say, where would you say that motivation came from for that entrepreneurial spirit?
I think I love to solve. I mean, the deeper real answer is that I love just to problem solve and I love to like figure out a puzzle. I'm so forward thinking, meaning like
Mhm.
I'm just focused on like what's next. Sometimes to a fault, that doesn't always work that great, but I'm like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? I remember going to church and always thinking about like doing the math on how much I was going to make from my hardware store job that I did when I was 12. I got paid $3 an hour. I'd be like, okay, if I could just make a little bit. I don't know, but I think my very frugal mother. Also, I'm really tall. I'm 6 feet tall, and I don't know. Back in the '90s, you could not buy long enough pants at Walmart, but she would not buy me pants anywhere but Walmart. So if I wanted my own money, I had to like if I wanted to have pants that fit, I had to use my own money. So I needed money somehow. So
That is great motivation.
yeah, probably just that like scarcity mindset from my parents. Also, I just have a real strong streak of I only want to do what I want to do. So working for somebody else, you know. And if you really think globally, there's so many people who are like, "How are you so brave to quit your job?" And I said, "It's also a risk to stay in a job because I don't know if you know or not, but the graphic designer doesn't get ever promoted to the CEO position. And I probably, if I was still a graphic designer now, I'd probably be making $50,000, $55,000 a year still. So it's kind of a dead end job, and that I just felt like that was such a risk to not have any upward mobility really in what I was doing. I don't like that butt in seat mentality of 8 to 5. It doesn't matter what you do, just have your butt in the seat. I hate it. It doesn't work.
Well, so that takes us back to your time in Nashville. You said you spent 6 or 7 years in Nashville, and you decided you wanted to start a business and move back to the Fulton area. What was not right in Nashville for you to start a company?
Well, so it was right before Nashville really blew up. So it was more affordable then. But my boyfriend at the time, it took him 7 years to get an animation degree from Middle Tennessee State University, which you can imagine the job prospects that might come from that. He was a cable guy, and I was making $40,000 a year or something in my job. And just thinking down the line, like in the next 5 years, we probably want to start a family, and we're not going to make it here. Like what we would have done for our kid to go to a good school, a good public school, is move out 40 miles out to the suburbs, have a house that looks just like everyone else, put our kid in daycare 10 hours a day, and commute an hour each way and spend 2 hours in the car. And I was just like, that, nope, there's no part of that I want. And just realizing that early enough on to be able to make choices before we got locked into the like, okay, we have a baby and we've made all these commitments and stuff. I love Nashville. It's so fun. So fun. We have so many great friends from there, but it's at a certain point, you realize you're not going to be going out 3 nights a week and having fun. You're going to be like home with a baby or working, or whatever. And so I thought, well, we can travel, and I'd like to live somewhere near my family. And I just never quite lost that feeling of community that I got from going to a small high school where it feels like the whole community is trying to cheer you on. They all come to the games, whether they have a kid there or not, or they're invested in, they care about what you're doing. Like there's something to be said for people knowing your life history. There's also something to be said for anonymity sometimes. Sometimes it feels like a fishbowl, but like just that feeling of community of like, hey, we're all here together. I know you, you know, the other piece of that is that I never felt like I never could get into a place in Nashville that I felt like I could be influential in any way. There's just so many people who have so much more money than you and so much more connection and experience. Like I wouldn't have ever crossed my mind to be on any community board there at all. But I've been able to, like, since I was, 30 or something, be on boards in Fulton. I was on the YMCA board for probably 10 years and feel like I really helped make a difference there. And the Chamber of Commerce, I'm really super passionate about actually, because they're doing amazing things in this county. And I don't think I could have contributed to that in Nashville. I just would have been another person in another cog and kind of an anonymous person. And that just I didn't feel like I was living up to my full potential there.
So are there other things in Fulton that you feel make it an ideal community for a small business, or actually a big business that you are running now, but that rural setting?
Well, I mean, it's really affordable for one thing. I mean, we have fiber internet. You can do whatever you want. But even compared to Columbia, our housing is so much more affordable. I actually live on the street where we bought an old building on our street for $73,000 on Court Street, which is kind of the main downtown. And I live at 800 Court Street and our office is at 400 Court Street, so we actually have the best small town experience because all the parades go right by our house. And also we can walk downtown for dinner, pizza, coffee, or to my office. So there's that, but then also the community, like having the community members, the president of the local bank, which I can see right out my window, it's literally right across the corner, Callaway Bank. The president of that bank is still on the Chamber of Commerce board with me. And when I was buying out my two partners in 2015, I had two partners in my first business and they were wanting to exit and I had to buy them out and get a really scary large amount loan. Through the SBA. SBA was taking too long and there was a deadline on the deal going through. And I picked up the phone and called Kim Barnes and I hung up before she even answered. And I thought, what is she can't do anything. It was like the night before it was going to expire. Like she can't like just pull any strings or anything. But actually when I called her, she was in a committee meeting and they were coming up with this roundabout way to get gap funding for it. And so she called me a couple hours later. She goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. I mean, she literally saved my business. And I have somebody in my office who's starting a business on the side and in Columbia and is having a really hard time even getting a bank account. I was like, please go to this bank. The people are there. They know your face. They know my face. Like it matters, and serving on the boards has been really really helpful to my businesses too, because the people that I'm on those boards with are way better at business than I am. So just like the osmosis of being with them when we're going over the budgets for the company and seeing how they operate things has been super educational.
So you've talked about some boards that you serve on in the chamber. When you were growing and starting up and growing your businesses, and even today, are there other organizations outside the chamber that helped you along the way or individuals?
Well, the SBTDC, whatever that is, helped me like get all the things up and running. And I went into that office. I mean, I had a like 6-week-old baby and went into the office and was like, I need an LLC for this, please. So that was really great. And also I participated in Mizzou had a program. I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was a mentorship program that they had through the Innovation Center at Mizzou, the one that's down in Reactor Field. And I went to that for 3 or 4 years, even like through the pandemic, and had mentors who were really very advanced, smart business people and people from Mizzou who helped me make some really hard decisions for my company. And that I heard about because my neighbor growing up was the office administrator for that program. So.
Wonderful. So let's switch gears a minute. You're in a small community, Fulton. I'm not even sure what the population of Fulton is.
13,000.
13,000. Okay. And you have lots of people that you interact with on a day-by-day basis. What are some of the people in your community? What have they said to you, or what have you heard, or what do you feel that they don't know goes beyond the scenes of your business?
Well, when we first opened this building, we had a little brick and mortar store downstairs that was partially like a experimental lab for me so that I could see what it was like to be on the side of my customers. Because 80% of our business is selling to stores, to little boutiques, like all the cute shops in every town you ever visit on vacation. That's who we sell to. And so we had a store, and they definitely, like, people in town really thought that was like how I was making money. In fact, I mean, even 10 years later, when we were closing the store last year, 7 years later, we were closing the store last year, and I had people like friends that I know who know me bring me like flowers and things and be like, I'm sorry, this is so hard. And I was like, guys, this is like the tiniest bit of my whole business. I'm really happy that the headache is going away, actually. So, and like even my hairstylist, when I was first opening it, she said, how many employees do you have? And at the time I had like 7 or 8 or something. And she said, I don't mean to be rude, but like, you haven't even opened the store yet. So how do you have so many employees? I'm like, no, it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff that we're doing. It's just because it's e-commerce. So the beauty of having a business like this and what's so good for the community is that we do $3 million in sales a year. And all of that sales tax, not just the sales tax comes to Fulton, but that's just people that buy things in Missouri, but sales tax comes to us from here, but also that's $3 million that's going into jobs here. It's going into property, and the money's coming from mostly from the coast. It's like such a great redistribution of wealth. I mean, it's a tiny drop in the bucket, totally, but I would like to think that it doesn't make a difference to Fulton, that we have 25 employees who are, living and able to work and have money to buy things and go out to dinner and whatever. But that all that money, I mean, most of our customers, I ran a report a couple of years ago about where they all lived, and the heat map was just so heavily on the coast. I was like, wow, all that money is just coming right back to Callaway County. Like, imagine if there were 10 businesses like mine that could do that. The internet is just so stable. It's so possible. And COVID was terrible for so many reasons, but it normalized video calls, like the amount of travel that I feel like I have to do for work now is so much less. And yeah, it's really great.
So as an entrepreneur, what are some of the support systems that you have in place that help you day to day or planning and keeping you positive?
Well, I mean, I'm a people person in a big way. I mean, I have really good networks. I sort of have two, what I call mastermind groups. I mean, that is a real word, but one of them is what I called my card lady friends, other stationery companies, owners. There's about 4 of them who I've met at trade shows. And we would call each other and say, like, how's this going? Do you like this trade show? What do you think about this card? And just be able to bounce ideas off them and be able to get into a conversation with a lot of understanding from the other party and get actual good advice. And then the other group is a local mastermind that has, it's 4 women. We meet every 2 weeks. We've been meeting every 2 weeks for 9 years, and for 2 hours. And we go in and have an ask and a give. So the ask could be, I'm having this HR problem. It's almost always about people. We're almost always talking about employees. I'm having this HR problem. What would you guys do? Or it's, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And then we do a give, which is, I'm reading this book today. Here's this podcast I listened to. This thing really helped me. And sometimes it's more or less formal than that, but we travel together. We do all kinds of things. And I cannot believe that that group of women is local, but they are. And I have seen all of us have gone from like these tiny businesses 9 years ago when we started to like really big businesses. I mean, really big. We're not Amazon, but I mean, pretty big for being based in mid-Missouri, and owned by women. We talk a lot about just the challenge of being a woman in business and also employing women. Maternity leave, something we constantly are talking about. And trying to make a change and be involved in our community too.
So a lot of the people that attend the CEC conference that will come in September are folks that will support entrepreneurs. So, and that's kind of the premises of the conference. If you had some advice or some tips to give to people that work with entrepreneurs, what would that be?
Well, so I kind of work with entrepreneurs myself because my clients, I have 12 clients in the warehouse, they're that are usually super interesting, creative people who have no business running a business. So I see firsthand, like, kind of things that they need. But I think the network piece is the most important, because having somebody that you can go to who just knows about your business, who can talk to you about it, about all the ins and outs of it, and to be able to give advice. But it's I know a guy. It's what my old boss used to call the good old girl network or good old boy network, where you're like, I know a guy who can help you with that. And I know this tiny little piece that maybe is a foothold for you to find the next other thing. And that's almost always people. It's hardly ever Google, I have a fine arts degree. I didn't study accounting. I didn't even know the words to Google about accounting. But the woman who was painting the building, her daughter worked for a company in North Carolina. She came to visit her. I said, how do you do this? How do you do that? She said, oh, we have a CFO, a fractional CFO. And I was like, what is that? And she hooked me up with them. And that's probably the biggest business thing that's affected our business total, is that I have this amazing finance team. So, the thing that like to support businesses is to connect them with other people. I mean, I think that's the most important part. And also to make sure and facilitate that you're having conversations about nuts and bolts, like what would actually be helpful. Because nobody feels like they have time to go to happy hours and whatever, but having that like the resources to back up the network is huge.
Okay. Well, so I have just a few more questions. One of those is at your keynote that you're going to be giving you're actually doing a keynote and a breakout session. What are some of the things that you'll be sharing that you didn't share today because we didn't want to give away everything, but what are some of the takeaways that you're going to be giving to the people that attend the conference and for your keynote and the breakout sessions?
Well, I want to talk about, I mean, first of all, I think my passion for running a business in a small town is transparent. Like, hopefully you guys can see that, but I want to talk more about how we can get more people to do it. And I definitely have ideas about that and where we could find those people and how to, reach out to them and recruit them. But also, we've been doing a lot of entrepreneurial projects in Fulton to try to get businesses up and running. And I have a lot of thoughts about things that business owners need that they don't necessarily know that they need. So I want to talk about that. And because I've been on the chamber, I've dealt a lot with local government and seen what a big difference that local and regional and state government actually can do to support entrepreneurs. So I love to talk about how those programs could help and what could be more helpful and what I've seen is not helpful.
I think that will be a great session. I think I'm going to go to that one. I'd like to thank you, Beth, for being with us, and we look forward to hearing more in September. And I'd like to thank everyone for attending the webinar today. And we'd also like to make a plug for you to join us next Friday. Annette Kendall, our regular host, will be back on Friday, and she is hosting a topic that she will be a part of on removing barriers with William King and Jonathan Bell for entrepreneurs. And so that is our next conference, our next CEC webinar. So thank you all for attending, and we will hopefully see you next Friday. And have a good weekend.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, Beth.